Thank you all for coming this afternoon. Have you been having a good time at the con?
Yeah!
Can't believe this is only the 4th year and it's already, what, like the 3rd largest con in the country? That's huge. And I'm honored to be part of this panel with my co-presenters here who will introduce themselves. My name is Todd Debrasini. I am a special makeup effects designer and artist. I am fortunate to be a faculty member of the Art Institute of Colorado, as well as Metro State University and the University of Colorado in Boulder. And I do a lot of independent workshops. I've been doing theater for 50 years, believe it or not. And I have been working in film and television for close to 40 years. And I've written a book called Special Makeup Effects for Stage and Screen. And I'm humbled by the success that this book has had, and I have some copies if anybody's interested after the presentation. But what we're going to do here today is after we finish the introductions, we're going to talk about cosplay and essentially how you guys can up your game. Tips and tricks. Riley's going to talk about this magnificent costume she's wearing and how she fabricated that. I'm going to be talking to you about prosthetic makeup, which is my specialty, including dental appliances and contact lenses, specialty contact lenses, which I hope you pay close attention when we get to that section, because you only get 2 eyes in this life, and you need to take care of them. And while our teeth are really tough and hard, when something goes wrong with them, we melt like little babies. So dental prosthetics is something that you want to also not take lightly if you need to use them. But it's all stuff that is part of making your costume, your cosplay outfit, your character complete. And we'll give you tips on tricks on where to get these things taken care of, who you can talk to about making sure that they're going to fit right, that everything is going to be healthy and safe, and where you can buy materials and how to just make yourselves the cream of the crop when it comes to walking around the show floor, and you're going to be the one people are going to be wanting to take pictures of. So now,
So is that one working?
Testing. No, it is not.
No, I meant the other one. Tabletop.
That is.
they're all working.
Those are.
Just pull that one off.
Okay.
Because I'm that wired.
Oh, well, let's split here.
You guys can hear me all right, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I couldn't remember what I said.
Alrighty. So hello, I'm Michelle Riley Carwab. I am known pretty well online for my username, Canine Hybrid. I've been doing a bunch of cosplay stuff for a number of years, started kind of dabbling in high school. I graduated the Art Institute of Colorado. I have a degree in media arts and animation. And my biggest thing is bringing characters to life. So there was multiple ways you could do that. As I started going through my program, and I just love drawing characters, I decided to go to some of the local conventions, and that inspired me to try to create a character for real instead of just on screen or on paper. And I started kind of looking around online, trying to figure out, okay, there's very little resources out there at the time when I started, so I kind of decided to just try a bunch of new things, make a bunch of stuff up, and learn from that. Every year it became a habit, and I created something new and tried to one-up my game every time that I did so. So I started with a lot of the anime cons, and I did a bunch of Pokemon work, and my biggest thing is definitely, as much as you can, create a character that disguises the human element and really enhances that this is something that is believable, that is a monster or a character, and it's an interactive experience when you're at a convention as opposed to doing something on stage or on screen. And I just felt I had so much more enjoyment from that. It's a very much artistic expression. It utilizes a little bit of all my little skill sets, and I learned a lot over the years. I took a bunch of classes with Todd and started going into more of the molding and casting side of things. And I'm looking to collaborate with some people getting some animatronic stuff into. I learned some LED work. And just kind of continuously looking to what can I do next to make this costume just make people stop and go, wow, what a piece of artwork. And so this is sort of just a little preview of the stuff I'm doing, and I'm going to be, like Todd mentioned, kind of talking about an overview of the costume that I'm wearing and how I got to that stage, and something that you can look forward to potentially incorporating into some stuff of your own.
What I'm hoping we can do with this presentation is, rather than the three of us being up here and just talking to you, is that we can make this a back and forth dialogue and answer questions and explain things to you that you're trying to work out. Because Riley just mentioned animatronics and LEDs, all things that can take your cosplay costume to a next level, to film quality, with eye blinks and articulated mouths, either with somebody working an RC controller walking around with you, or with pre-programmed circuitry that is readily available that can run off a battery pack inside the head. All stuff that we'll show you pictures of today.
Yeah, what's good about that is the first time ever all of these kind of information and resources and products are available for the consumer market now. It's not just limited to what you've seen on TV anymore, which is why it's very, very exciting, and why cosplay has taken off so strongly. So that's what we're all about.
So I'm Jade Winters Johnson. I have a Master's of Fine Arts from Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. I actually did ask where that was. But I went to school at Colorado State, and I fell into costume design simply because I really enjoyed making clothes for a character. Because it's, why is that character in that outfit that particular day? Why did they put that particular pair of shoes on, that ring, that hairstyle? And then that's what we see throughout the entire film or the entire play. So a lot of what I do is researching the character to then help it come to life, because a little bit, if you're shy, you can say, go look at this, and I'm back here getting cold. So it's exciting to see that cosplay has taken off, because I started going to the Ren Fair. My brother was like, oh my gosh, you got to go to this thing. Although I haven't been to the Colorado Ren Fair in 10 years, and now it's all pirates and steampunk.
How many of you are consider yourself actors? How many costumers? Okay. How many of you like to fabricate props? All right, great. You know, as a performer, one of the things about how costume and makeup enhance performance, the audience may never even see it. It may be an undergarment that an actor's wearing that helps bring them into the frame of mind that they need to. I did a version of The Wiz several years ago at the Denver Center, and it was a handicapped theater company called Family, and the actor who played the Cowardly Lion was blind, born sightless, and had prosthetic eyes. And the way we built the makeup for his character, he had a pronounced brow. It was really neat looking, but the way the show was lit, we couldn't really, the audience wouldn't be able to see his eyes, though it was clear that he was the Cowardly Lion. But he had his ocular prosthetist make him cat eyes that he could wear. And even though the audience couldn't see them, he knew he was wearing them, and it changed the way he performed the character. And it's little things like that that can help enhance how you create, either whether it's a costume for yourself or for somebody else, or as part of a troupe. These little things, attention to detail, make it all the more important to do. I mean, as artists, we can't not do it. It's part of who we are. We have to do this kind of stuff. And our work should never be good enough. We should always look at our work and go, you know I could make a better head if I had a little more time, a little more money, a little more something. It's not to say you can't look at your work, and my students hear me say this all the time. It's not to say you can't look at your work and go, gosh, I'm getting pretty good at this. But no matter how good you get, it can always be better. And that's what we as artists need to keep striving for, and why we're doing this panel today, so that we can help get you to that next level. To talk about, sculpting, mold making, casting, what materials you can use, lighter, more durable materials.
Exactly. Nothing is more exciting than getting a chance to walk around in somebody else's shoes for a little while. And so So that's kind of the most exciting part of costuming. So I did live in LA for about 9.5 years. I worked on various films, and behind the scenes, I knew, I've lost his name. I've known some pretty famous people before they were famous. I'm like, because I don't mind nerding out when I'm near somebody that's really awesome at their craft and gets a chance to show off. So the exciting part is I fell into teaching and I love it. I can't stop. So I've had the joy of working at Santa Monica College. I'm now also faculty at the Art Institute. And while I teach on the fashion side, in the back of my mind is, come on guys, what makes your garment exciting that somebody wants to buy it? That it's interesting, that it's you and that personality. So that's what's so exciting about things like this, is all the different costumes that I see right now and all the different personalities that show in each of your different garments. And you're right, it's a never-ending process.
And every piece that we build,
yeah.
we learn something in that process that the next time we do it, it's going to be even cooler. For example, I got to design Shrek for Boulder's Dinner Theater last year, and in doing the Shrek prosthetics, I did Papa Shrek, Baby Shrek, Mama Shrek, and Pinocchio, and did Pinocchio's growing nose mechanism as a cable control mechanism. Well, for a production of Young Frankenstein that just opened last weekend, I built an animatronic skeleton skull mechanism so that during a number called There's Nothing Like the Brain in the first act, when everybody on stage is singing, so is the skeleton, and one of the actors is controlling the open and close mechanism of the skull off stage. I'm going to incorporate this process now into a rebuild of Pinocchio for a production of Shrek that's going to open late this fall, using a micro-linear actuator that will be a mechanism in a pack hidden on the actor. So Pinocchio's arms can be waving all around, and somebody off stage will be able to use an RC controller to make the nose grow and recede on command.
Did we play that?
Yeah, I did. I played all of that on cue. I'm good.
Any questions so far? Anybody thinking about incorporating animatronics into a costume at some point? Okay. Where are you in that design process?
I'm working actually with wings. I'm actually looking at making a set of wings that open up and can actually move.
Very cool. Definitely doable.
I can hook you up with someone.
And so much of this, animatronics does not require, it's just animating something. It doesn't have to be electronically motivated with servos and so on. Riley, I don't know if you have that, the articulated
I don't have
hands
the video queued up.
of finger extensions for a hand, that how you engineer it can get the fingers to completely bend, even though the fingers are about yay long and they still look like normal actuated fingers.
This is the work of my friend Chris Graff, who I've been working with for a little while. I designed actually let's go back a little bit. I have this Velociraptor inspired character who's actually like an alien race, very futuristic sci-fi, and I designed him built specifically around how a person would fit inside the costume, and this would require disintegrated stilts to pull off the correct movement. So I wanted to keep enhancing, like, okay, what little things can I put in here? And I started sculpting the head and everything, and I had a friend that built me a prototype for the disintegrated stilts, and we're actually in the process of redoing that now. But I had presented this to him being like, okay, I don't know anything about animatronics, I don't know anything about mechanical anything, so I went to a mechanical engineer, and I said, hey, let's make art and science come together. And I gave him sort of my sketch up for some ideas. We scoured the internet for some inspiration and some ideas and worked with that. And this one is not the one that is in the image. It was built for another friend who's working on a Velociraptor that we'll be hopefully debuting soon because the new Jurassic Park movie is coming out. And so she got this working, and it's really, really cool because her fingers only extend to where this black part is here. and the rest of it is exponentially bending as she bends one finger. So this is not an animatronic, it's a mechanical mechanism.
And that's something you really have to think about in the design process, is not only how am I going to get this to do what I want it to do, but somebody's going to have to wear this as a costume. How is this going to be doable? Is it going to, if it's going to be battery operated and have a circuit board running a servo to make eyes blink and so on, how easy is it going to be to change the batteries or to recharge them with a plug? How is the performer going to be getting into and out of it? All of these things, the design is critical. It may be the coolest looking thing ever, but if somebody's going to need to see a chiropractor 6 times a week after wearing it for a day, then you need to rethink the design.
It's one of the first questions that I ask a student if they're coming up with a really intense design is, I'm sorry, how'd they go to the bathroom? And it is, you know, basic bodily functions. Can they take it off, eat in it? Can they use the restroom? Because at some point, they're going to need to, or they're going to need, you know, a colostomy bag.
Oh yeah, Mystique from the original X-Files, Rebecca Romijn Stamos. I mean X-Men, what did I say?
X-Files.
Which they're making a movie. So X-Men, her costume, there was 90-some individual prosthetic pieces that they had to glue onto her, and also cover her naughty bits and allow her to be able to go to the bathroom without having to get out of makeup that took several hours to get her into.
What's interesting is a device called a leaning board, and really all it is a piece of wood with a little ledge. The actor that's in a huge costume that has a lot of armor, because they can't physically sit, this was used in Star Wars, this actually was invented in the 20s. All it is a piece of wood with a ledge. They would step on it and lean back. That way they wouldn't pass out from having to stand all day, because the early first costumes, once you're in it, you're in it. So good luck with that. So it's almost interesting, a lot of what I do is a lot like magic, in that because for theater and a lot of stuff for film, before we had all this CGI, it's sleight of hand. And if you're so interested in the story, then you follow along with what's going on.
And so much of it is about
that suspension of disbelief. And with prosthetic makeup, which I do, if you can see the edges of the appliance that's been applied, that suspension of disbelief is gone. If you can see brush strokes in the paint job of a character who is supposed to be completely blue because their skin is blue, but you can see brush strokes in the color, that suspension of disbelief is gone. And there are ways to eliminate that. Part of it is just not being in a hurry. Being in a hurry has a tendency to cause mistakes that wind up costing you more money and time down the road. Take the care to begin with to make it look right. If you're supposed to see the brush strokes, like Heath Ledger's Joker is, worn makeup, that's one thing. But if you're doing Mystique and you can see brush strokes in the paint job on her cheek, you might want to go back and look in the mirror before you go out in public like that.
Anytime you're pulled from the story and go, why are they wearing that? You're no longer in the story, and as costumers, stylists, and the creative team behind it, we failed. Because now you're focused on why are they wearing purple polka dotted pants and they're at a business meeting, instead of following the story. And my favorite is always, you never leave a musical humming with the costumes, but if the costumes don't work, you can't hear the music.
And everything has to work in tandem.
From makeup to costume to suit, it's all about the performance. It's never about the makeup, it's never about the costume. It's always about the performance first and foremost. You can come up with the coolest design of a makeup or a costume, but if the actor's performance is inhibited in any way, then it's wrong. Even if it's a psychological thing, which sometimes it is, because actors are nuts. I know, I'm an actor and I work with them all the time. And, well,
I'm part
Goes without saying.
psychiatrist because it's, okay, do you feel comfortable wearing this? Because now everyone's going to see you. And a lot of times actors don't get any lines. And so it is based off of stereotypes. And well, they're going to think I'm this and this. Well, yay, that's the idea. So go be that for a little while. But yeah, it's a lot of therapy.
Mhm.
And I've had ladies when I worked at Santa Fe Opera that went, that's ugly. No. $10,000 hand beaded, beautiful matador vest. And no, it's ugly. I think I buy that.
you just spawn flash something in my head here with the beaded stuff. Any Game of Thrones fans here? Spectacular costumes. Oh my God. Some of the coolest costumes in television. And, you know, it's not about the costumes, but it enhances everything else. It's all about production value. It's, you know, bang for the buck. It all plays together, set design, production design, so on. And then how does that relate to cosplay? Marginally, but we all need to be in the same mindset when we're designing and performing in character. It's about the performance. It's, why are we doing this in the first place? Yeah, we like it because it makes us feel good, but it's also because other people think it's cool and want to be around it. And that's why we owe it to them to make what we do for them as good as we can make it. And we're going to show you some things here that'll help you get to that place. It's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that aspect of the business. That's cool. I'm going to try that. So, you know, you see, I've kind of surrounded myself with some stuff. I brought some dental prosthetics that I've made. I've got some foam latex prosthetics also that I made and others made, and Knight of Knee helmet from a production of Spamalot.
It's a rehash
Oh.
of it.
And then there's this guy from The Walking Dead zombie. That's not really what the Knights of Knee look like underneath. But it would be cool. But this helmet, while it looks like it's made out of metal, is made out of latex rubber, reinforced with fiberglass cloth, that not even an actor can break this.
Don't give
The
them
horn.
a
The horns are soft urethane foam. This is all sculpted. Each of these pieces were sculpted individually. The horns, one sculpture, one mold for the horns. The helmet was sculpted out of wet clay, which is a water-based clay, WED. It's inexpensive. A 25-pound bag of wet clay costs about $19, as opposed to oil-based clays, which are considerably more expensive. It's easy to manipulate the clay and move around. They use it extensively in the film business for sculpting large creature suits. The animatronic dinosaurs for Jurassic Park were sculpted out of wet clay before molding, as was this. And then it's just line. It's very lightweight, extremely durable. This, on the other hand, is a silicone head. It's real human hair, hand punched into it. You guys can all come up and take a look at this at your convenience later on. But the teeth. How many of you have had your teeth impressions done at your dentist's office for braces or whatnot? Good. So you should all have lovely teeth. These are some over-the-gum style teeth modeled after Bicycle Girl from The Walking Dead. Yeah, there's.
You can ask the dentist to keep your teeth molds. I've moved over 80 times in my life because I picked really bad apartments, and I found it was easier to keep all my own stuff, like x-rays and things like that. So anytime you ever made a mold of your face, like a lot of us did in high school, you can use that for the base for starting your prosthetics. Yeah, you can ask your dentist for your teeth.
Same thing,
You
you
can have a
know.
little Ziploc in your drawer.
Same thing with
braces. I did a production of Forever Plaid, and one of the actors wears a retainer. I went one step further and made full-on braces, but you can buy the braces hardware from most dental places. These are vacuum formed. They're kind of. You have braces up there?
I don't.
I think I've got pictures of those somewhere.
No. I'm not aware. It's not in the teeth.
I'm a little old to be wearing braces. But you notice, even though these are very thin, these are vacuum formed, just over casting my teeth, it's going to change your speech patterns. So as an actor, you need to rehearse and practice, because for theater, you can't overdub easily. So for performance, you need to do something where you can practice. And the thinner you can make the pieces, the better. I've had to do dental prosthetics fangs for a production of Bat Boy, where the teeth are just really, really gnarly, sharp teeth based on Weekly World News Bat Boy.
And you said the screen. You want to talk about that too?
Oh yeah, okay.
So you're talking with teeth.
Yeah, talking with teeth. Beauty and the Beast. This is a sculpture for a production of Beauty and the Beast that I designed, and the sculpture was finished by Stuart Bray, who's a British makeup artist. And then I molded it and we cast it in silicone. And it was sculpted on a life cast of the actor's face, but done as a mask because he was going to be wearing a full fur cowl with horns that would hide the straps holding it to his face. But because it was sculpted to his face and it was thin silicone, very soft, I think there's like a smooth-on EcoFlex Double Odd 30, which is a really, really nice, soft prosthetic grade silicone. Every facial expression he made emoted directly through it. I think I have a production picture of Beauty and the Beast. That's from there, that one right there. That on stage, it looks like it's part of his face. And with microphone placement and the way we sculpted around his mouth to keep it open on the upper lip, there was no vocal inhibition at all, and it worked beautifully. Even the tusks were made out of silicone.
Oh, so we got some fun stuff.
When it comes to props, I did a production of Peter Pan, where I had to do Captain Hook's hook. Lightweight, inexpensive materials that would hold up. Actually, talking about lightweight, inexpensive materials, for that production of Shrek that I was talking about, we did the cowl and face mask. The face piece was done the same way we did for Beauty and the Beast, silicone, but we bonded it to a soft urethane foam and latex skin cowl that the actor could put on and wear, and then paint around eyes and mouth.
Do you have pictures of that? Possibly.
I may, if we can get online, I can show you on my website. But there were 96 performances of Shrek. One prosthetic used for the entire run of the show, and it looked as good at the end of the run as the first tech rehearsal.
Nice.
That's how good some of these materials have gotten.
Yeah.
How long do you give yourself to finish a prop like that? Does it take a year?
Are you talking about the Shrek prosthetic or the?
Sure. Beauty and the Beast.
Sometimes, like I've got a short film that I'm working on right now that I just started the sculpture on Wednesday and haven't touched it since Wednesday, and I've got pictures of it on my phone that I can show you when we're done with this. We start shooting on June 18th for 3 days up down in Victor, Colorado, and basically doing it. It's based on a Mark Twain short story, and I need to get this done quickly because I'm going to be doing, it's a full face prosthetic, but it's an old age, and it's going to be neck and chin. So I'm sculpting the full face from hairline to front of ears. I'm doing ears, I'm doing teeth, and then I'm going to float off the sculpture, which is a method that you use like a dental separator. It's basically like soap that dries. You coat a very thin film over the life cast before you start sculpting. So when you sculpt the entire prosthetic, and then you can delineate on the sculpture where you're going to separate it. So I'm going to do a separate forehead piece, separate nose, separate cheeks, separate upper lip, separate chin, and neck piece. I will be able to soak this life cast, which was made out of ultracal, which is like Plasterzilla, for about 24 hours, and it will reactivate that liquid separator and allow me to lift the sculpture off of the life cast and then resculpt each of those pieces on separate cheek pieces that I've created from the original life cast. Does any of that make sense?
If it doesn't make sense, pick up this book. It explains everything, step by step, every bit of information that we're talking about.
So anyway, I am going to be using pretty much every waking moment between now and the time I have to go to Victor to start shooting to finish this, because I'm going to have fresh set of prosthetics for every day of shooting. They can't be reused because in the removal process, the edges get destroyed. Even though silicone is resilient, the edges need to be flawless because I'm separating. All of these pieces will overlap slightly, and any semblance of a visible edge in close-up photography is going to just completely be unacceptable.
So as far as trying to figure out how much time you need, it's a matter of how long does it take for the prosthetic to dry, when you're gluing it, how long to set it. Hey, mistakes happen.
Mm-hmm. This
And
production of Young Frankenstein that I'm doing right now, the only prosthetic we're doing is a forehead piece and a lace wig piece. But because we're doing foam latex, it's very lightweight. It weighs nothing, and every expression goes through it. It gets destroyed literally destroyed in the removal process. So we have a fresh forehead piece for every single performance. And this makeup takes an hour to get into because we're painting him from the elbows down and from the neck up in blue paint, which is actually the same color that Peter Boyle was painted in the film Young Frankenstein. Have you ever seen any of some of the rare color photographs from the film? The monster was blue, not green. And we've gotten the removal process down to, we've been experimenting from an hour and a half removing it to 30 minutes, which is huge, and I'll be happy to share that with you as well.
Sure. Okay, so I'll talk about some of my stuff now. Alright, so as I mentioned, being an animator, my background is really strong in drawing characters. So that's usually how I start. I had a few concept stuff kind of up here really quickly. A lot of times I just see a character and I'm watching a movie or I'm watching some animation. I'm just like, first thing that comes to my head is, how can I turn that into a costume? It just happens. So I've just randomly sketched out a few over the years. It's like, okay, how would a person fit inside of this? How would they see? How would they get out of it? How would they breathe? Those things are very, 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 very important when it comes to building creature suits, because you're basically covering your entire body, and usually you're wrapping it in very hot, expensive material. You want to make sure that you do everything in your power to pre-plan as much as possible. The pre-production stage, I can't stress how important that is enough. You need to have your concept art, your reference materials, your a plan of action in order to give yourself the best approach to a project like this, particularly to something you've never done before. Every one I do, I have to learn a new skill or make something up and try out a bunch of things until something works. So you get to see a little bit of behind the scenes of some of my thoughts I've been working with over the years, like how would I do this. So particularly for the one that I am building right now, it starts out as a drawing, which I actually take a photograph of myself from the side view and front view and the back view, and as a silhouette, I take that to the computer and I draw directly over that silhouette to see how a person, but not just any person, me particularly, is going to fit into that, that costume, so I can get a lot of idea of, okay, how am I going to approach that. I thought I had a picture of the duct tape. Yes, I do. And sometimes, and this is the poor man's version of the life cast for a full body figure. It's called a duct tape dummy, and there's lots of tutorials online of how to do it, and it's very important that you do it properly, because doing it improperly is going to be difficult for making correct patterns that fit, and it can also be fairly dangerous if you don't do it right, or very inconvenient for the person who's being duct taped.
Please have a buddy
Yeah.
that you've bought pizza and beer for, because you will need them to get you out of this.
But it totally works.
You're going to be very close to this person for a few hours.
Yes.
And I have tons of tips on how to do that, but yeah, there's a lot of great tutorials now that are out there. So, but you can also take pictures of just the dummy and plan and design on that instead of your actual body.
Ron, what would be the cost of doing the duct tape?
A duct tape dummy is going to cost about, you need about 4 rolls of good duct tape. Cheap duct tape will fall apart on you. I actually recommend Ace Hardware duct tape. I've tried all the brands out there. That's my favorite because it rips easy. I use about 4 full big rolls, and you need a painter's coveralls. It's that thin white stuff you protect yourself with paint, because you need something thin. Cannot be stretchy either, because the duct tape will be stuck to it, and then when you take the person out, everything kind of shrinks and compresses. And you don't want shrinkage, because that's not going to give you an accurate representation of your body form. Yeah.
The duct tape dummy is something I've actually done before in the past, and one of the things that we did to cut down on the sheer cost of the duct tape, because you're absolutely right, the cheap stuff is crap, was to use painter's tape as the underlying layer.
Painter's tape, I find, is more expensive, sometimes.
Well, the painter's tape, you can use the ridiculously cheap stuff. It won't adhere to the skin, so you can literally use the sticky side on the skin and not have to worry about it like you would with duct tape.
That's actually a good point, yes. It's really nice. It does stick to itself, and it doesn't stick to other things. And I've tried doing painter's tape for patterning before, and it works great. Actually, it does. I just found it to be a little bit expensive. And then when you take it off, you still have that kind of stickiness on the backside. Usually I put a layer of saran wrap on the bottom of it. And a lot of people even do duct tape dummy instead of doing painter's coveralls. They'll just saran wrap or do paper towels as a base layer, just to kind of give an extra barrier between the skin.
Well, I meant doing the duct tape on top of the painter's tape.
Oh, as a base, okay.
Yeah, just
now
as
that
a
makes
base.
way more sense.
It wouldn't adhere to the skin. You don't have to worry about the fabric contracting because, well, it's painter's tape. It's just paper.
Yeah.
And then doing duct tape on top of that, that way you can eliminate an entire layer of duct tape.
Learn something new every day. I'm going to try that one. So the next thing that I do personally is I take this design, I blow it up to real life size, because I see all the proportions. Like, I know my head's this tall, I know I'm this tall, and I scale that up and slice it up into manageable pieces from my printer, print it out, and put it together. So I have a life-size version of it for front and side reference. The head that I'm building on is actually a life cast of my own head as well, so I know exactly how my head is going to fit inside of it. You can get styrofoam heads at, like, wig stores and things like that. As long as you measure your own head and build up foam around the styrofoam head, you can get a better representation of the actual size of your head, because those wig stands in the store, they're like alien-shaped heads. Nobody has that shaped head.
And the best measurements are going to be around your head circumference, at the top of your ears, and then
Crown to the nape of your hairline.
Essentially the same measurements that you would be using if you were going to be constructing a wig.
Right.
Ear tip to ear tip, that's important.
So I use upholstery foam primarily for my work. It is the same stuff you find in your couch cushion. There's a bunch of different varieties and densities and stuff, but I just get it at the fabric store. And here I actually use 2 different kinds of foam. The white stuff is called reticulated foam. It's the stuff you find in like a fish tank filter or for marine seat cushions, because it permeates water and air. So the idea with experimenting with this is maybe I can get just a little bit more airflow in a head, because I'm imposing myself a couch foam, which is insulating. It's going to be very hot. but it is very lightweight, and I can throw this across the room and it'll bounce because it's just made out of foam. It squishes, it compresses, and it's not going to damage it as long as I don't over abuse it, but it's pretty durable for what it is. So I build sort of a base helmet, and I position the eyes to where they need to be so I can try it on and make sure, okay, yes I can see, yes I can breathe. And every step of the way, you got to do a test fit just to make sure that you're not overlooking something. As much as you can plan, sometimes mysterious things kind of crop up that you didn't plan for, and you have to learn to work around that. So
please don't overestimate the measurement from your nose around your head. My father dressed up as the Easter Bunny, and he's like, oh, I can just barely get it on. He ripped most of his nose, the skin off, trying to get a store-bought walkabout off his head. So that's the fullest part of your head, because remember how you get in it, how you get out to pee.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of important. You don't want to rip your nose.
So try to build that into your suits as much as possible. Like, as much as I like sacrificing certain kinds of things to make sure the cosplay is great, like maybe I can't see that well, or maybe I can't hear that well, trying to avoid as many of those shortcuts and make sure that you are comfortable and you're able to last in it is going to ruin the performance quicker than anything if you can't manage that.
And you need to be able to breathe. You don't want to knock yourself out from lack of oxygen.
I am very, very hot in this costume, just sitting up here and half of it's open. A cooling vest is a good idea too, and having a buddy for sure.
Those things are awesome. Disneyland uses those because when I was a sewer trying to get my union hours, the Seven Dwarfs for their show that summer had summer outfits with cooling vests with different fabrics that were breathable, like all that stuff you see at Eddie Bauer now, wicks the moisture away. That stuff is fantastic. And then they had different outfits. They were the same silhouette and color, but it was for the winter performances, so they could have heating packs and things like that in there because, again, you don't want to ruin the magic at Disneyland, God forbid. And so it's, you know,
can't have monkey
about
passing out in front of the children.
Yeah.
So the next thing I do is building the actual structure of the character. I literally, as you can see on the floor over here, I cut out the face of the character and I traced it onto the foam, so it is exactly the way that I drew it. And I put it on and put 3 pieces together so I give it some depth to go across the width of the face. And I just kind of followed this technique of additive, which is a sculpting thing, and then subtractive, where you take it, you start carving away, you start rounding out shapes, you start seeing, you know, the forms and finding those shapes, and that's just something that's going to take practice.
Are there some tools that you prefer using when you're doing the shaping?
Yeah, electric knife is my best friend, but it is a power tool, so sometimes it feels like it can get away from you. So then I do a lot of cleanup detail work with scissors, just little snips, and then it's sort of a beveling edges. So anything that's like a hard edge, I just cut off the corner, and then I cut off that corner, and then I cut off that corner, and so suddenly I've got a round shape now, and that just takes a little bit of whittling away and some time.
Do you glue them together?
Hot glue.
What do you use?
Hot glue. Yeah.
It doesn't melt your foam.
You have to be careful with that. Foam is, you know, it's made of chemicals and stuff, and heat is not its best friend, neither is sunlight. It does deteriorate over time if you don't take care of your materials properly. Using low temp, most people recommend. I kind of use like a high temp with a multi-temp stick. I find that it works really well. It's actually a lot more solid than you think it would be. I would avoid using any spray foam glues because those give off a lot of fumes, and you're putting this on your head. Those fumes could stick inside the costume for years. If you're not careful, you could breathe bad. Yeah.
I was going to say, have you ever experimented with using hot wire guns for
that is
I was just going to mention that too, because if you're using styrofoam as for any kind of filler and you're using hot wire to cut it, styrofoam gives off cyanide when it burns.
It is dangerous to do hot knives and wire cutters, like hot wire cutters and stuff like that because of the fumes. Have a respirator, be outside, etc. Like, same with anything that you're spraying. Safety is huge with this, both for yourself as a performance when you're wearing a suit and when you're making it. Especially if you get to more advanced levels, you're working with chemicals now. They have MDS sheets.
MSDS, material safety data sheets, you need to have them for everything that you use. They are available for everything that you use. Read them, understand what everything means. Some materials, like some urethanes, will leach oils, and you just need to be careful with some of these things that are coming into prolonged contact with your skin. There are ways that you can encapsulate a lot of this stuff to add that extra layer of safety.
And then the eyes are made of buckram, which is a material used actually for hat making mostly, but it's got very porous little dots in it because it's a woven fabric. and it's got little holes so I can see out of it, and light will permeate through it, but because it's dark and shadowy here, you can't actually see into it this way, so it looks like a solid eye, especially from far away, but I can see out through it pretty dang well, as long as it's centered, you know, in a way that it's not like over here on the sides or something like that.
It works like a scrim. So that old theater magic trick,
You guys know
where
what
this is
theater
actually
scrim
from the turn of the century, the 1910s and 20s. There's some horrifying Halloween costumes where kids would take muslin, paint it, and that was a mask. And they're creepy. Yeah, Google it, because they're creepy.
Theater scrim
But it works on
is
it works on the premise of if the light shines from the front, you can't see through it. But if it shines from the back, you can. So if you're on stage, you can see. They can't see you. That's how those. He's kind of a close example. That's how these kind of masks work. So you don't see their eyes. But if they had a flashlight inside, you could see that. But from the front, you can't. And all it is a porous fabric, is what theater scream is.
Yep. So
Which
just
is now
quickly going through the rest of the
Halloween
process.
trick.
Yeah, same principles, blow up life-size body myself, and I've got the duct tape dummy. So then I start building all the foam pieces, okay? I literally cut out the piece of paper that has, and use that as my pattern. And so I give it a, this is supposed to be a look of an animal leg, standing on its toes, a digitigrade stance, instead of plantigrade, which is heel on the ground like people. So, and it starts really blocky, and then I just go in and fill in some of the gaps, and then I smooth it. And you don't have to be super, super detailed with your smoothing because all this is going to be covered up with fabric or skin. If you're doing something that was like a spandex or something that was going to conform to every little mistake or bump, then you have to be a little more careful. The foam tail is like a core that is just like a cylinder, and the rest of it is just stuffed fabric. So I actually have a really, really good tail. So that just helps bring like the hair to life more because it follows the wiggle of my body. And that's because it's really important
to have a
strong
good
hair.
rounded tail, because the first thing anybody who sees you is going to go, hey,
Oh, you're gonna pull it. Yeah, they're gonna pull it. People usually don't respond to costumes in the appropriate manner. That's why they
even if
signs
you just have a
everywhere
bunny
that says,
tail
"Don't touch."
walking around, they're going to try to pull it.
You know, little kids too. So then the next stage is covering with fabric, and this is a difficult kind of concept to wrap around. How do I get something 3D to 2D flat and as a pattern? So I have to kind of figure out where natural seams and breaks are. And the point is to try to do it as few pieces as possible with just enough that you can cover the forms right. So you can see it's actually a lot of pieces. There's about 80 pieces of fabric individually hand sewn on this head alone. So you can imagine how much the body has too. And that is just a technique that depends on, it's different for every single project, but darts are going to be your best friends. And sometimes you just may have to try it over and over and over again. The point of the duct tape is it is just like when you're doing the dummy of your body, and you take it off like a skin. If you ever done 3D modeling skinning, it's the same principle too. Once you take that off, you can cut it down so every piece is flat, transfer that to your fabric, sew it up the exact way it was when it was in duct tape, and it will be all those rounded forms and shapes that fit like a glove. So everything's broken down apart and sewn together, and testing fit, putting the heads on, and then the head aspect should be shaved. Right down the middle here is long fur and short fur. It's kind of a little bit hard to see. Maybe you can see better on the chin here, but it's really, really fluffy, so you have to shave it down because animals have fur direction, they have different fur lengths, and you have to put that into the costume so it becomes a fun thing. And that was myself and my friends. We all made these matching dragon characters together and went to Hollywood just for fun, because it's what we do. We just love to do it.
Riley was talking about hair direction. You know, another thing that you can do in skinning your costumes is a technique known as flocking, electrostatic flocking, where you can use small rayon or nylon fibers, basically that are going to give you the same look and feel as the head here, but some fibers you can get longer. About a ½ inch is about as long as you can really work with well. But with electrostatic flocking, you can do adhesive on fabric, and the positive and negative charge, and the flocking will shoot out of the flocking wand and stick. And before the glue completely sets, you can, with light air pressure, change the flow of the hair to get swirls for a cowlick on a head or around elbow joints, and get stuff that you can't get with store-bought furs.
Something that's also important if you've done anything with puppets, anytime a puppet stops moving, it's dead. It's just a tragic story of it. So having stuff like faux feathers or real feathers or fur that can move and bristle in the wind, that helps give to the illusion that this is a living, breathing thing, and so we help buy into that suspension of disbelief. So for time's sake, I'm just going to kind of run through. So I was working for Golden High School, and we decided we were going to do Cinderella the year that the movie came out. So fantastic. And the thought was, how do we add some lights to Fairy Godmother to make her more magical? And the plan came to be, how do we get her on a battery pack, and how do we make those lights do some fun things? So based off of adding LED to your cosplay, pretty much there's a couple different types of LEDs that you can purchase. There's the type that comes on the string that you can get from Party City. They tend to only have one color, and they only do 2 or 3 things. And then I've noticed this makes a really horrible, that's fun to hear for 6 hours walking around being somebody else. Yeah, so if you're sensitive to sound, this one does do the pulsating, but it does come on a battery pack. So that's one way to try to get lights, you know, because again, like puppets, lights add to that mystique that this is something that is living and breathing, something different from what you see every day. So LEDs, basically light emitting diode. You can go online and find tons of tutorials on how to actually take these little diodes, put them together with your new electrician's knowledge. Or like I tried to do is go and find some that were pre-made. So my inspiration for Fairy Godmother is this lovely woman, Angela Clayton. This girl is 18. Please go to her Facebook page. Her costumes are fantastic. So at first glance, I thought that these were done by Christmas lights. No. Close. She went to Michael's. These are 4-meter long lengths of white LED lights that she got off of Amazon, and of course you need all the batteries. So when you think about how am I lighting it up, where am I going to store this on the costume so it doesn't break that whole, I see your battery pack, it's ruined. So a lot of times if you make a little pocket that just hangs off the side from the inside of your costume, that's going to hide the battery pack so you can move around hands-free. And why a lot of times costumes are made a size bigger so we can hide all of that on the actors and the mic pack and all that fun stuff, so it's not ruining it for the audience.
We are running out of time.
Okay.
Or we have run out of time, is that right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So I didn't even get to get into contact lenses. An hour goes by so fast. There's so much more that we wanted to talk to you guys about, and we need to budget our time better. If anybody wants to come up and take a look at some of these things up close, I have a zombie